Welcome to the More Than Dis podcast, where we dive into conversations with good friends to bring us out of our stress, away from our to-dos, and out of our head. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. It's great to have you. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review to help others find out about the show. With that out of the way, let's jump right in.
The day I met you, obviously, at that workshop, it was a workshop for people who don't know that it was a workshop for people with disabilities that was done for a movie, basically.
Right.
It was a training for a movie that was going to get done that you were involved in. And it was just the coolest opportunity for me to meet the people because I saw people who went there, and I think a lot of people that went there really had no interest in doing it. They were like, okay, we'll see what this is all about. And some really didn't pursue it because I think maybe going to that workshop, they realized that it's not what they thought it was going to be, that it's a lot of hard work. And that's true of anybody. It's like acting, that sounds cool, you know? And, you know, they look at the red carpet and they look at the big stars and all the money they make, and they don't realize when they get into it that it's a huge commitment. It's a financial investment because you have to get headshots and resumes and classes and all of that. But then there were a handful of people, including you, that I'm not an actress myself. Yeah. So, which I think is hilarious. Because I can teach acting. Yeah, you can teach it amazingly. But I don't act myself. So I can talk in front of 10,000 people. Right. That wouldn't bother me. But for somebody to say, read these lines and make it believable as another character, I'm like, there's no way. No. And usually it's the opposite. People who can do that can't get up and talk in front of thousands of people. Yep. But your openness that day was so cool. I mean, you were just not only completely open to doing it, but when we gave you adjustments, when we told you to do it differently, you didn't have the attitude that so many people have because they either go two ways. Either they're super embarrassed that they must have done so bad that in front of all these people I have to tell you how to do it differently. Or they're like, I did fine. Why are you telling me anything, lady? And you were just you have such a beautiful spirit anyway. You light up the room no matter where you go. Much. But it was just such a joy for me to meet you that day. Yeah.
I gotta be honest. When I say that it was just completely out of character for me, it just honestly was because I went there. I think so I knew Carolyn, but we weren't that close. We were I think like she was a friend of mine, and I looked at her from across the room, but I didn't even recognize it was her. So I literally had no idea what I was getting myself into, and the reason I even went there in the first place was because I was doing the YouTube channel, and my friend who sent me the link, she was just like, it might be a good opportunity for you just to kind of meet other people with disabilities because, it's not a common thing, right? At least for me, I haven't dove into like the disability community as much as I would have liked. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I was like all for it. And then I think I mentioned like everything that went into my head, but I thought it was gonna be like what you see on TV, like for America's Got Talent or American Idol, where there was just gonna be like a train, like a line, just around the block. So I was like, okay, I don't have anything planned for tomorrow, so I'm just gonna go for it, you know. And the funny thing is, like my friend, she was like, when I told her that I had actually gone, she was so surprised because she didn't think that I would have gone because it was just so out of character. But I was like, yeah, I went. But I was like, I have to be there like at least an hour early because I was like, I need to get in. And then I think I read somewhere that there was going to be like a limited spacing. So I was like, okay, I need to get there. And then I show up like an hour early.
There's no one there, probably.
there was nobody there. The funny thing though, like I got there and I was like, And then I was like, well, I'm just going to go to the front. So I walk around the building and I see Doug, who's the producer, like the writer-producer of the movie of all people, right? And he was like trying to like see like into the building because he was barely like going to get into the building himself. But I walked up and And he was like, hey, are you here for the workshop? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, well, and he checks his clock. He's like, well, we don't start until about an hour. But he's like, I mean, I would go get breakfast or something, you know. And then he's like, are you on the list? Because there was some type of registration. And I was like, list? I was like, no. I was like, my friend just sent me the link, like, I think a day ago. And I just decided to show up. And he kind of, like, checked his phone. I don't know what he checked, but he was like, come back in an hour, and then we'll see if we can get you in. So I was like, okay. And I kid you not, it's still one of the best days because that hour, I never do this, but I just walked down in downtown Boise, which is beautiful. So it was early morning. There was like no people. And I found like this like random cafe. And I got my coffee, sat outside and just watched the city like wake up. And I still remember I was like, wow. I was like, this is a great day. And I was like, well, an hour passed and I was like, I better just head back. There was more. There was more people by the time I got there. But I managed to get in. And then as soon as I get in, you guys handed a script.
Right.
And I was like,
what? Oh no. Yeah. Oh no.
I was like, well, this is cool. I was like, this is how a script looks. I was like, no idea. Again, I was like all nervous, you know. I was like, sat at a table completely by myself, and then I was just like, well, and then you guys just started the workshop, and then with there was a portion, right, that you guys were having people go up there and do like a video audition basically,
right?
And I was like, again in that same attitude, I was just like, I don't know anybody here. And I had been practicing because you guys gave us time to practice. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And like I was, by that point, somebody was sitting next to me. And I remember it was one of the last, you guys were like, okay, last person. And so I was like, oh, dang it. Like, so I was like, I raised my hand and the guy next to me raised his hand as well. And then you guys had us rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, that's right. And I forgot about that.
I literally never win, Catrine. And I ended up winning. And I was like, oh, okay, I made it. But I kid you not, when I was walking up there, I got so nervous. And I was literally like cussing it under my breath. And I think like April was here. I was like, what did I get myself into? I was just like, this isn't it, right? And I was like, I need to go back. But then by the time I got there, I was just like, well, yeah. And then I just... Thankfully, the guy, you guys let the other guy, he did amazing too, but you guys let him go after. But yeah, no, it was quite an experience.
Well, it was great. And for anybody who doesn't know Miguel personally, his biggest challenge in acting is not smiling.
Yeah.
Because Miguel smiles all the time.
I know, it's a problem.
All the time, which is the most wonderful thing. That's why it's just so inspiring being around you.
Thank you.
But when you're doing a scene where you go, my mother just got murdered, and you're smiling, it's like, dude, you're a psychopath.
Yeah, no, I think the scene that that you guys had me do, I was a struggling basically drug addict, right?
Right.
And I was like looking for like my next fix, and I got caught. And then I just could not help but smile, like, at the end of the scene. Because I was like, okay. Like, I couldn't, like, yeah, it was just... But you were so nice. It was not... I think I also went into it with, like, a preconceived notion of how it was going to be or how people were going to act. And it just has not been like that for me. Everyone's been so
well. A lot of casting directors can be really awful. I mean, those stories of people in LA. I've heard so many stories where people go into audition.
Right.
And the casting director goes, "Excuse me, you think you're an actor?"
Right.
You know? It's like, would that not devastate you?
That's kind of what I had in mind going. Yeah. And again, that's why I didn't put too much thought into it. I just went because I'm like, I'm not never in my life had I done that. So I'm like, I'm not an actor. So I'm obviously not going to be...
Can you say that now? Can you change that now?
See,
Let me hear you say it. Let me hear you say it.
Don't do this to me.
Say it.
I'm an actor now.
Yeah! See,
a lot of more practice. I need a lot more practice, but yeah.
See,
I mean,
you can say those words now.
Isn't it crazy? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's cool that you're giving yourself permission to do that.
Like I said, it just sounds so it's uncommon in a way, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And yeah, I don't know. It's cool though.
But if you don't give yourself permission to know that you're an actor, how can you convince anybody else that you're an actor?
Right. That's
I mean?
A very good point. I mean, and it applies to basically everything, right? Like even myself as a designer.
Of course.
So like if I don't believe that I can do a good job, then nobody else will, right? So it totally makes sense. And it was a great experience, like you said. You allowed me to go to your classes, like basically just snowballed, because from there you kind of took me under your wing. You let me start going to your acting classes, and then I auditioned for the movie, which, which after I think it was rough, because there was a couple months where you guys were still looking, like, so I went to audition because Doug had met me, right, as well. So I went to do the first audition, but I didn't hear back for, I wouldn't say, the months that I was in your class, which was all summer, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, that was a good try.
Whatever.
You know? Yeah. And I totally understand the reasoning behind it as well. You know, being, you guys wanted to cast the right, like the correct disability for that particular character, which totally understand. And then, but I remember, and I think I told you this too, I had pretty much given up on getting that part. And then it just so happened that, like, through my work as a designer, I was going through a pretty stressful time with, like, a project that I had at the time. And it wasn't until it was that day that I was just so stressed. I didn't know what to do. It was just one of the things that everything kept going, like, wrong, or like something, like I just had to be on constant alert.
Right.
And I was just like, I was so stressed. And then I was like, I'm just going to step away. I was like, I need to get out of my computer. Literally, when I did that, my phone rang with you. And you were like, guess what? You're like, you got the part. So, like, my emotions went from, like, one extreme to, like, the whole other extreme. And I'm never going to forget that, because, yeah, it was just from, like, being super in the dumps to oh my gosh, like, what did I get myself into? And then everything, yes, like
it's like what Sally Fields said at the Academy Awards when she won. She went, they like me, they really like me.
No,
that's kind of the feeling you had, I'm sure. It's a great validation, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially during that time, I just keep thinking, like, to go from, it was just the perfect, I was just like, it was such, I keep saying this, but like, everything has been such a gift, and it's in those, like, little details that I'm just like, man,
well,
like,
that's a God-driven thing,
I've been
isn't it?
very fortunate.
Yes.
Very fortunate. So, I want to focus more on you, though. You of course have, like, one of the most interesting lives, I feel like, that of people that I know. But did you always want to be, like, this kind of sound like one of those questions, but was casting director, where you always be like, yes, that's the career field?
No.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, I kind of feel bad, because I've done pretty well in my career, and I feel bad because I hear all these other people say, that's what I always wanted to do.
Right.
The first time I watched TV, I knew what I wanted to do. And I really didn't. And I went to college in LA, and I started going to school, and for some reason, a lot of the people I met were film students.
Oh.
And I was not a film student. I was a French major, which was a cop-out because I grew up in France.
So it was an easy, you were like, easy. Yeah, so getting, like...
Seriously, I mean, I'd go to class, and the teachers who weren't fluent speakers would be like, I'll give you an A, just don't come to class, because it was intimidating. So I started hanging out with the film students. And I tend to be very organized, and schedules come very easily to me. So I ended up producing a lot of the student films. So producing is really my base, and it's really my passion now, along with casting.
Right.
But I never really went into it intending to do it. But I realized when I started producing the student films that it just came really naturally to me, and I liked it. And so after I got my BA, I went back and got my master's in education and film and television.
Wow, I didn't know
And then I started working at Walt Disney. They had a company at the time called Walt Disney Educational Media Company.
Wow.
And I worked for them. So I was 21 years old. I just gotten my master's degree, and I got a job producing the first training videotapes that were done for the characters at Disneyland.
Really?
So it was kind of, I mean, what a trip being like 21 years old and having security guards. And anywhere I went in Disneyland, I'd just say, I need this closed down because we're going to film. So it's like, excuse me, would you close down like Pirates of the Caribbean because I need to film there? And they did. It was like, I don't have that power now. I have to wait in line for 2 hours like everyone else.
Yeah. You can't be like, remember me?
Yeah, remember I
worked
produced those tapes. No, that
funny.
Doesn't work so well.
So
but
funny.
So I started out there, and then I got into production and casting, and I really was producing more at the very beginning. And then I got a call from this guy, Robert Redford, who wanted to know if I'd be one of the casting directors on a movie he was doing in Utah when I was living in Utah. And so I did that, and that's what started my casting company. And then I ended up casting like 400 or 500 projects.
Oh my gosh.
And then got back about 15 years ago, I started getting back into producing. So now everything I do, I produce and I cast. Because once you've been a casting director, it's very hard to let go of that, to hire another casting director.
I mean, because it requires an eye, right?
It does require
that
an eye.
So yeah, I can imagine, like, I mean, from not even like a production side of it, you just know from a casting director, like, oh yeah, he'd be good,
and
or she'd be good.
You really have to be intuitive about people, because it's not just the performance, because when you're working on a set, about 90% of the time on the set, that person is just there as themselves. They're not acting.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be perceptive about what that person is going to be like just to be around. Is he going to make he or she going to make everybody crazy?
Yeah.
Or, and that's why you have such an asset, because again, you're just such a bright spirit that everybody wants to be around you anyway.
I'm sure the cast and crew were pretty tired of me, because I would be like, oh, can I see how that works? Like, when I wasn't filming, I was so, like, would enamored be the right word, but I was like, all the different machinery that they used, how they built the sets, and I didn't even get to see, like, how they're producing, like, the audio or, like, the visuals of it. Like, I'd be like, it was just, and I mentioned this, but I was like a kid in a candy store the whole night. I was just like, oh, do we have to go back on set, or can I just, like, keep staring at, like, how you're working?
Well,
like,
at least they let you near the equipment, because they don't let me near the equipment, because I have a tendency to break it. I have this amazing ability with anything that's electronic or computers that you've got me this close to your computer and it's still working, which is amazing. See, you as an actor got to stand close to the equipment. I show up on set as the producer, and they're like, Catrine, can you stand like maybe 10 feet away? Yeah, it's kind of like machine COVID with me. It's like social
you're just like, so 6 feet of, please, Catrine, 6 feet away. No, it was great. It was a great experience, and I think of the casting in the movie, it was just fortunate in that everybody was so open. Like you said, the cast and crew, they were just amazing. So for being, I guess, my first acting experience, because everybody was saying, well, of course there were other actors there with tons more experience, and they were saying that it wasn't common, like, to have that camaraderie.
Right.
It was actually not very common, and it kind of shocked me, because I'm like, what? I was like, I couldn't imagine, like, a bad experience, but I think it was just kind of like that first. I guess I just haven't experienced it, so I'm ready for that shock.
A lot of it is what you make of it too, but you will work with people who don't know how to work with actors and who may not be very respectful because they have a final image of what they want, but they don't know how to get the actor to do it without just cramming it down their throats, which is not the way to do it.
Right.
So you'll run across that. in your career,
Yeah.
but you kind of have to deal with everything, and you just can't give up your own self-worth or your own dignity because somebody else is not treating you the way they should. That's their problem.
That's really great advice.
Yeah.
I think something that helps me too is the fact that I am a kind of a creative in the creative field. So I do kind of understand kind of the kind of possessiveness that comes with working on a project, like on your project. Because even for me as a designer, sometimes like I do something and then someone's like, oh, can you switch this? And I'm like, yes, but it's my baby. You know, like as a designer, I think it's important. And a teacher, actually my old boss, she told me, she's like, it's important to kind of have that detachment from your work. You are the designer behind it, but the important thing is your client ultimately. So that kind of helped me kind of let go a little bit, but it is, you do hold it close to you.
And I think that's something that we worked on in class, where you learn that you have to come into an audition having made very specific choices about your character.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to have directed yourself in that part before you get to the audition.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be very clear, very strong choices. But
that's more difficult than it sounds, though.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But when you do it and the casting director says, wow, that was good, you're a good actor, but you've kind of got the wrong twist on what the story actually is, that's where I see
it's
a lot about whether or not I'll be able to work with that actor, or a director can work with that actor. Because an actor who's a true actor will be able to let go of the director position at that point, and they'll be able to listen to what I'm telling them, because I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I'm guiding them towards what the director is looking for.
Right.
And that the actor that's a true actor that's workable will sit and listen and really take in what I'm saying and make the change that needs to be made. Mm-hmm. But a lot of actors, especially if they don't have a lot of experience, you see, because they have prepared so hard that when I say something, they go, no, I think the choices I made were pretty good. So I don't know where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, I
But I think that actors just have to understand that when you come into audition, if you're not doing well, we're not going to stop and make comments. We're just going to have you leave the room. The only time we're going to make comments or try and make you to do it a little bit differently or tweak it is if you're doing really well and we think that we can help you make an adjustment.
Like kind of push it a little bit farther.
Yes. So getting comments from a casting director is the very best thing that can happen to you
right.
when you're auditioning.
Perfect. Going back, how have you seen kind of two questions. How from when you started, you mentioned, but then also like in your different travels, because you've been in LA, you've been in Utah, and now you're here. You've been here in Idaho. How have you seen the industry change over time, and then specifically in the different areas?
The industry has changed so much. I don't think that things will change that much in acting. I don't think they ever really will, because I think truth is truth.
Ooh, I like that.
And, an actor that can put out a truth, that's going to be universal forever.
Yeah.
But I think what has changed is the actors' perceptions of what their jobs are. So when I first started, there was much more of a humility. There was much more of a, I need to train from those people who've been around. I need to learn my craft. And now I think it's with the advent of reality TV. And now I think a lot of it is, I want to be famous.
Right.
And when they come in, they are just entitled to have a big part. And, without doing any studying. That's what makes me crazy. I mean, I use the analogy in class all the time of playing the piano. You don't wake up one morning and go, I'm going to play the piano, and you're self-taught. I mean, there are people who are self-taught who are very good at piano, but for the most part, you have to have a teacher, and you have to work, and you have to, you have to learn in piano. You have to learn the chords. You have to learn all of that.
Right.
And there are things like that. And from my classes that there are technical things you need to know to be able to be on a set. You need to know what the terminology is. Yeah. You need to know all of that. So I think that's the biggest difference I see, is that, but I think entitlement is not just for show business. I think entitlement
in
is
general,
a problem that we have in general.
Yeah.
In the world. As far as filmmaking is concerned, of course, things changed drastically when it went from film to video. Because back when I started, even with student films, it was film. And it was, 8 millimeter. The bigger projects were 16 millimeter at universities. But even then, to get to shoot and to process it cost about $1,000 a minute.
A minute?
A minute for student film. So before you went in and did anything, you knew what you were doing, and you made sure that your actors were prepared, and you made sure that you knew your shots, and you made sure that the lighting was right.
Right.
Now, because it's digital, it doesn't really matter. You can do it 40 times. So it's like, well, we won't really, let's go ahead and shoot it. And I'll look in the monitor. Oh, yeah, the lighting really isn't very good. Let's adjust it.
It's quicker fixes.
It's quicker fixes. And it's not always a good thing. I mean, I think it's great that it's given access to more people to be filmmakers because it was so expensive. But at the same time, people have to realize that being able to buy a camera does not make you a cinematographer any more than being able to buy paints and a canvas makes you a painter.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that I could buy the best paints and canvases there are, and I wouldn't be able to paint a Monet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that with the advent of of cameras getting cheaper and cheaper,
and now having them on our phones,
right,
high quality cameras,
that people feel now that if they've got that and they just point it and shoot it, they're filmmakers, and they're not. There's a lot more to it than that. And so many people feel they don't really need to learn, which leads to another one of kind of my pet peeves, and is people in smaller communities like this one, because this Boise's a smaller film community, is people tend to, over the years, continue to be film hobbyists. So they spend a lot of money, I mean, they take their own money, they make these little movies, they make shorts, they do this, they do that, which is great. I'm not putting that down. But at some point, do you always want this to be a hobby? Or do you actually want to consider yourself a filmmaker? And if you consider yourself a filmmaker, then you have to sell that project. To be a professional, you have to be able to make your living from it. And that's where a lot of people, there's a guy here in town. He's an amazing writer, and he has written these amazing scripts, fantasy scripts that are worthy of big studios, of all the beautiful production design. And it's just so hard to get him to move forward into the business that world, instead of just doing it himself on a very and it frustrates me, because I go, this is such an incredible script. I'd love to see this move on to a bigger scale, but that's a big step. It's like I think it's like a writer, and this has probably happened to you with logos. A writer hates to say that their script is done. Because once you say it's done, then people look at it or read it and they go, this is done?
Yeah.
You're done editing?
Yeah.
So people have a tendency to say, well, it's a work in progress, because once you say it's completed, then you're leaving yourself wide open to being criticized.
Oh, I mean, totally. With creative work, it can never be perfect enough. Or let's say that I look back at a logo that I did a couple years ago of course I'm going to find like, oh, I probably could have done that differently, handled it a little bit better. And that's a good thing. I don't think that that's a negative thing, but it really is that kind of like, it's never, I would say never really quite done.
Right. In your own mind. But you also have to think about the fact that everybody will have an opinion, and everybody's opinion can be different too. So when it comes to script, one person may read it and they'll go, I loved it. I just loved it the way it is. Somebody else may read it and go, I thought the dialogue was terrible.
Right.
So now you work on one person said that. So you go back and work on the dialogue, and now you show it to the person you showed it to in the first place who liked it. And they're like,
they don't
well, I used to like it, but I don't like the dialogue now. So, I think with art in general, whether it's filmmaking or design or anything, I think that when you're doing something, you have to be open to critiques, but really keep your vision alive so that you can be open to a critique. And if somebody says something, you should be open enough to go, oh my God, why didn't I see that? That's a great idea. I'm going to do that.
Right.
But if it doesn't fit into your vision, to not feel that you have to follow suit because somebody said something. You can go, it's a great idea, but it doesn't really fit into the vision of what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a conversation that I've learned to have, not only with myself and my own projects that I have, side projects, but also with my clients, because sometimes we do like to get just tons of opinions, which is good, but like you're saying, sometimes it kind of gets lost, and it's always a question of like reminding yourself like the essence of the project for yourself, because like you said, especially with logo as well, like logo work, it's so subjective. It's totally you can work on it for days. I don't want to say years, but like months or weeks. And then someone down the street could just be like, "Oh, I don't like the way they did that line."
Why did they use that shade?
Right,
of green?
right. Yeah, that's why I always I kind of have this rule for myself. I'm like, when people ask me like what I think about a certain logo or a certain work, I don't. Of course, I have an opinion, but I don't think it helps because I don't know that the intention behind the designer.
Right. It's sometimes that with the branding, if they're trying to explain the branding, but they don't know how to. I remember casting a movie once, and the director kept saying, it was a martial arts movie. It was years and years and years ago, and he kept saying that he wanted mountain men. Well, what's a mountain man to you? What's your image of a mountain man?
Oh, are you actually asking me? Maybe somebody with like a beard or, like a big dude,
Yeah. So that's what I was bringing in, because that's everybody's vision of a mountain man. He was like, no. And finally he came in one day and he goes, I went to this gym this morning, because he was from out of town. He goes, I went to this gym, and they were like, why couldn't you find them? There were like all these people. What he meant is just somebody that was big and bulky, big and muscular. But saying mountain man, that's not the vision that people have. So I'm sure you deal with that all the time with branding. Somebody will say, well, this is kind of what my brand is. This is the idea I want to get across. I want people to get this feeling when they see it. But in reality, that's not it. It's
good to have that kind of end point in mind. But yeah, it's you're never going to please everybody.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely a process when it comes to that as well.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how there are these overlapping parts to it, and I feel like for me that's been helping me when it comes to kind of like my acting.
See?
Yeah.
You said it again.
Yeah, I mean I was gonna say hobby, but I stopped myself. One of the things with acting though is I was talking to my roommates one day, and so I'm the type of person that like I can't have a hobby because I need to do everything. I'm a perfectionist.
Right.
So I need to do everything right. I need to dedicate the time, which kind of almost sometimes takes the fun out of it. So I didn't want that to happen with acting, because I really did enjoy it, and I was like, no, I kind of want to leave this for me. But then at the same time, I'm like, no, like you're saying, it takes a lot of work, and I need to dedicate my time
paid for it.
Yeah.
Because you pay to develop your craft, and so then at some point you need to be paid back as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So you like to travel a lot.
I love to travel.
You visit France a lot, right?
I grew up in France, like I said, so I still have family there. So I do go back there whenever I can. But my husband luckily loves to travel as much as me. So we're like, at night, I have trips planned through, let's see, summer of 22.
No.
Right now. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I've got like 9 trips planned between now and then. I think my husband and I, if we could afford it, if we had the time, that we would just like not have a house.
Yeah, just travel.
We would just travel. But I love it because I love new experiences, and I've traveled internationally a lot. And I just think that you learn so much about people and about the world. And it's always been my philosophy that if people had to travel as children, that there would be fewer wars, that there would be more understanding between people, because so much of the hatred that we see, or the prejudice that we see, is based on a complete lack of knowledge.
Just not understanding
Yeah.
other people's experience. No, I even remember even in high school, they always kind of motivate us to travel abroad, and or in college, right? But the people who did it kind of came back and said the exact same thing, and they're like, oh my gosh, like it's a completely different experience. I'm so glad I did it. Or even my friends here, they after they graduated, they kind of gifted themselves a trip to Europe,
right?
And it kind of just showed them, I mean, the rest of the another portion of the world.
It makes you very aware. And I think that one thing you have to do, and that I was taught by my parents very early in life, is when you go to a foreign country, you keep your prejudices to yourself, because if you don't like what they're doing in that country, then leave.
Right.
It's not your country to change. So I'm not talking about, horrendous, civil rights abuse or something. I mean, as Americans, we tend to try and do that. But for example, I went to Nigeria once, and I'm a huge animal advocate. And I went to Nigeria once on a project, and the Nigerians just do things differently than a lot of people. I mean, and they are an anomaly in Africa. Like the rest of Africa goes, oh yeah, Nigerians, they're kind of interesting in the way they do things. But while I was there, a whale washed up on shore. So what do we do in the United States? A bunch of people go and push it back in the water. Well, no, what they did is they showed up with like saws, and electric saws, and cut off like chunks of meat of the whale while it was still alive.
Yeah.
And then one clever family ended up putting a rope around the whole whale, and then you had to pay them to go in to cut stuff off. It's the same ingenuity as the emails that you get about, the prince that has died and needs $100,000 from you for you to be able to claim whatever. The incredibly ingenious people, I loved them. It was hysterical, but that particular thing was very difficult.
It's a culture clash, right?
It's a culture clash. But I didn't say anything, because it's like, Catrine, you don't like the fact that they're cutting this whale up. I mean, go home.
Yeah, you're visiting.
That's my thing. And so I do, in the United States, I do as much as I can for animal advocacy. But I, as one person there, I mean, I'd love to say that I could try and change something, but if I were there picketing that they shouldn't be doing that to the whale, it's me fighting an entire culture.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And I know that, people have to take small steps to make big changes. I just feel that when you're traveling, you need to blend in as much as you can and not show yourself as being an expert on something. Well, I'd never do it that way. Or why don't you take dollars? Well, I don't take dollars because that's not our currency.
Right. It's not. And I heard this a while back, but it's not kind of your job to necessarily educate other people. Right. So that kind of stuck to me, and you can't, especially with other cultures, because obviously they're totally different than what we experience here in the U.S.
Right.
So.
And it's deeply ingrained. I mean, our cultures are very deeply ingrained.
Right. I mean, they shape us from the very beginning.
And it's funny because having lived in several countries and kind of seeing the cultural attitudes in various countries, you really see that the United States, in a sense, historically, is kind of a teenager. It's a young country. And it's kind of going through that teenage stage. So even when you look at the spread of COVID in European countries, because they're pretty strong and pretty stubborn too, but in European countries, there's more of there's like a grounded feeling amongst the people. So when a lot of those governments came out and said, we're just going to stop this quickly and everybody has to wear a mask or you can't come out, then it did. Now they're having a second wave, of course, but it did stop it very, very quickly. Whereas Americans, who kind of have that young teenage independent attitude. It's like, hell no, nobody's going to tell me what to do.
I've never heard it put that way. Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, if you think about it, there's kind of a lot to that.
Yeah.
You know,
no, totally.
Like we think more about our rights, and we think because it's still relatively new. I mean, you know, a few 100 years old. That's not very old.
Yeah.
Compared to Europe, where it's like they don't even think about things like that because that's just the way it's been for years and years and years.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's such a good point, Catrine. How has COVID been for you, even here in Idaho?
I'll tell you, I keep hearing people. I talked to a friend the other day, and she helped me out with something. She didn't want anything from it, but I sent her a little check, and I said, just got to dinner with your husband. She goes, we haven't gone out to dinner since March, but, you know, we only go to the grocery store, but I'll bring something in. And I thought, how do you do that? Because to me, I mean, I'm all for being careful. Yeah. But I also think that, you know, in being so afraid of dying, you may forget to live. Oh. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. It's like, what point is there to sitting in your house and not living if you're doing it because you're afraid of dying? Yeah. So, you know, I've traveled quite a bit. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go back to Europe last month and couldn't, had to cancel the trip because I flat out, because with Maddie, because I flat out couldn't go, you know. But we did just, you know, like a month ago, I've been to the East Coast twice in the last 3 months. And the last time we went to see my mother, who's 96, and then
oh my goodness,
took a trip from there and went down to Florida and saw my husband's sister, and we're careful. We wore masks, but we did the tours of things, and we saw things, and we went out, and we were just safe in the way we did it.
Right. I mean, I feel like that makes the difference, right? There's a difference between deliberately going out and looking for, I guess, trouble when it comes to COVID, like, you know, and then there's also like that middle ground of being cautious, obviously, like, but also like not necessarily, like you're saying, completely halting your entire existence, because I don't think that's healthy psychologically either. I'm speaking from my own experience, because even though I have been working from home before this whole thing started, even not being able to kind of have those outlets of like going to dinner with somebody or going out for drinks or something, it really affected me. At one point I was like, I need to get out of this house. Like I need to see people. Other, you know, my roommates were great. And I was talking to them, but talking to another person for the podcast, but I was like, selfishly, I kind of enjoyed kind of having them here, because I'm like, oh, another person to talk to. Yeah, another person. I could see another person. Whereas usually they'd be out and working, obviously. Right. So, yeah, it's just, just proceed with caution, I think.
Yeah, and I can't say that it's really affected me much, because my husband's a builder and construction goes on. And with me, and I was finishing post-production on the last movie I produced. And
yeah, I thought, oh my gosh. So yeah, because that's what I've been seeing. Like you've been busy. Like
really busy. Yeah.
You've done so obviously you did so paranormal prisons, right? That's just coming out. It's showing in a couple theaters here, right?
We had screenings at the prison, which is where we filmed it, not at the state prison. We didn't show it for felons. It was the old penitentiary, which was open to the public. But we did just get a distribution deal with Gravitas Films, so it will be out in February or March, which is great.
That's exciting.
I've also done produced 3 music videos.
That was gonna be my next question. How is that? Like, what's the, obviously there's a world of difference between producing a movie and then a music video, but you do a lot of music videos. Like how is that different, and how creatively? How does that challenge?
Well, it's really it's fun creatively, because obviously you have to work with the artist that you're doing the music video for, and it's interesting seeing the vision that different artists have and how they want it portrayed. So Some are very easygoing. You just kind of go through the key points, and they're like, yeah, that sounds good. Go do it. And they're fine. And then some, I mean, everybody we've worked with has been just absolutely lovely. But everybody approaches it in a different way. Yeah, but we were very, very fortunate that Head PE came on board to do our song, the closing song for Paranormal Prison, because they've got a huge international following. They've been around for like 25 years. Oh. And so they volunteered to write the song for it. And so we created the music video for that for them as well, which we shot at the prison. Oh, and wow. So that music video is really cool. And that'll be shown in conjunction with the movie. Okay. Yeah, we've shown it at the prison. It opens the screenings that we have. Okay, that's cool. But when they go back on the road, they'll also be using it in the background when they sing that song. Ooh. And they actually just put out an album that the song is on. The album's called Class of 2020. And the album has made it through the first rounds of Grammy nominations. What? So, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations. Yeah, I mean, to have a song in that, like, yeah.
It's really that's fun. Huge. And then we're producing a little video to promote Paranormal Prison that will be shown at the Visitor Center. Oh, wow. At the Old Pen. So when people go there, they'll kind of it'll be an introductory thing of when you're going through the prison, look for these locations that we use to film Paranormal Prison. Yeah. And then, of course, we've got like 8 other projects in development, films in development too. Yeah. So we keep pretty busy.
That's good.
And I'm starting up my classes again pretty soon.
Are you real? Okay. Yeah. Good. I was gonna ask about that too.
Everybody's calling me. They're like, "I'm getting rusty. Because I need a class."
Yeah, I know we did like with a friend of ours, Mike. We did like a one-on-one class. Well, it's been a couple months ago now.
That was amazing.
But yeah, it was great to get back into the kind of, I guess, like into reading a script and kind of performing it.
I get such a joy seeing the growth. The growth that you guys made.
You know, it's funny because like the person that you mentioned about getting rusty, I felt the same way. I was like, I need to like keep practicing. Yeah. Because you kind of do lose it, and that awkwardness, especially right now with COVID, of self-taping too. Right. Like, for me, it's still just as awkward.
Absolutely.
So I'm like,
but okay, it really is like going to a gym. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. You have to keep doing it, or else your warm up should be in classes, keeping going, and otherwise your warm up is going to be at your audition. You'll walk out of the audition, and on the way home, you'll be going, "Why did I do it that way? Why didn't I do it this way or that way?" Yeah. So it is important to, you know, to keep the muscles in good shape.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, just the people that were in the class that I was with, I'm sure they're knowing them and just how passionate they are. Like, I'm sure they're just itching to get back into your classes or some.
Well, it is fun. It kind of becomes a little family.
It really does. I was so again taken aback in a good way because yeah. But it makes sense because you go up there and you kind of do a scene, and it does take a lot out of you, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, you know,
you have to be in a trusting environment. Right. And that's why I always say in classes that it has to be a trusting environment, and we don't want anybody in the class putting somebody else down. Yeah. But as you know, I can be hard on people. Hopefully not in a mean way.
No, not in a rude way at all.
But no. I just figure if you're there to learn, I'm not, you know, you can go to a casting session, just have the casting director go, "That was really good." That was great. You know, it's like you don't learn anything. Yeah. So I feel it within a safe structure that I still need to be, you know, really critique what you're doing, or else you're not going to grow.
I mean, essentially that's why we're there, right? Like you said, we're not like, if I just needed like somebody to tell me that I'm doing a great job, then I'd be like, "Hey,
just go to an audition."
Yeah, can you just tell me that I'm doing great? That's all I need to hear.
Which I wish I could do that with everybody's audition, but you have to push yourself. You have to grow.
What makes a true friendship?
Wow. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I've kind of been allowing people that shouldn't be in my life to disappear from my life, not in a bad way, but I've just been focusing on the people that I care about. And I think that it's very important when you have a friend that when you think of them and you think about talking to them in a time of need or being in a position to even borrow money or do something along those lines. I want friends where just when I think of them, the default answer is yes. And I think we can all think about people we know and think about, you know, if you're in a situation where you're depressed about something, do you ever go through a list of people that you could call?
Yeah.
And then you go, no, not them.
Yeah.
Because of this. Or no, not them because they'll make it all about them. Or no, not them because they'll judge me. Or I think it's the people when you've gone through all of the no, not thems, it's the people that are left that are your friends.
Who is one person that has impacted your life in a positive way and how?
My father. My father was absolutely my best friend, my mentor. He just saw a huge amount of ups and downs in his life. When he was born in 1923, his father was making $10,000 a day in 1923, which is, I don't even know what that would be, you know, today. And that was in oil in Texas. And when the Depression hit, he honored all of his contracts with the people whose property he had drilled on and paid out what he owed them until he had no money left. And they literally had enough money to get into their car. My grandfather, my grandmother, my dad, his 4 sisters, and his mom was pregnant. They went to Northern California and moved in with their family there, their grandparents. And the men who were old enough went out and worked in the orchards, picking fruit, and they made about $10 a week. And yet my dad said that those are some of the happiest days of his life, some of the happiest times of his life. So he taught me an amazing amount of value of what it's like to have self-worth and to have family and to have people that you can care about. Money is a nice byproduct, but that's not what the ultimate goal is. He was always extremely kind. He didn't like organized religion because he felt that it had caused a lot of problems in history. And yet, if you want to use the word Christ-like, he was probably the most Christ-like person I knew. His word was his bond. You never needed a contract with him. He was funny. He was supportive. He was lovely. He was a colonel in the Air Force. He was the commander of the biggest squadron in the Air Force. And everybody, when I tell them that, they think, oh, he must have been really tough and really hard. No, he was my daddy. He put on a uniform, went to work, and he was a colonel, and he came back and he took off his uniform, and he was my daddy. He was just an amazing guy, and every day I try and live up to his values.
What is one piece of advice you would give to the youngest member of your family?
To be honest. To always be honest with yourself, with other people. I think that a lot of the problems that people have in life come from living a lie in some way. You're either lying to yourself or you're lying to others, and you can't live that way. If you can, that's not a good thing. If you can live with lies that you're telling yourself, I think that being ethical and being honest and being true to yourself is absolutely the way to go, and that carries through to everything. You know, if you're gay, I mean, that's not a choice. If you're gay, you're gay, and you need to acknowledge that and get your family to be okay with it, because it could lead to suicide. You know, and I think that a lot of the depression, a lot of the problems that we have are because there's a lack of honesty, either with yourself or with others.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Anytime.
for being here. Yeah, like I said, I you have impacted, I think, changed my life. So I was like,
for the better, I hope.
For the better, definitely.
You've been listening to the More Than Dis podcast. Before you go, don't forget to give us a quick rating and review, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit downwithdis.com to stay up to date with the latest information about the show. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we'll catch you on the next one.